Wanda Maximoff has finally found a happy home for herself in Westview, a small town in New Jersey. She's married to Vision now, and their only concern is how to fit in. They've been trying to act normal, but there's nothing normal about them. He's a carbon-based synthezoid, and she has a spectacular range of superpowers. Also, for some reason, they seem to be living in a 50s sitcom. Vision puts on a human face to keep up appearances and goes to work. Their next-door neighbor, Agnes, pays a visit to welcome the new residents. Fishing for some gossip material, she asks questions that Wanda has some trouble to answer, and not just because of their secret. She struggles to determine simple things like how long they have been together or why she has no wedding ring. While Wanda tries to dodge her curiosity, Vision is in the opposite situation at work. No one can tell him exactly what his job is because, apparently, they don't even know what the company is. These inquiries are put aside when his boss mentions dinner tonight. Vision had forgotten about that completely. He barely has time to let his dear wife know about the guests, let alone that they're expecting a 4-course home-cooked meal. Not even magic can help Wanda in the kitchen, but the clumsy couple ends up getting away with the mess by blaming it all on culture clash. Wanda is from Sokovia after all. However, there's one more incident before the night is over, and this one is not followed by pre-recorded laughter. Just when Mr. Hart begins to ask about their past with rude insistence, he suddenly begins to choke. His wife laughs and tells him to cut it out. But as she becomes progressively worried, her appeals seem to be directed at Wanda, begging her to stop, as if she were somehow responsible. In order to save his boss, Vision is forced to reveal his ability to transverse matter, but nobody seems to notice at all. The guests quickly find an excuse to leave, and the strange incident is forgotten. Westview looks different in the morning, as if it had moved to the next decade overnight. Wanda finds something strange in her garden. It looks like a toy helicopter, and unlike everything else, it's in color. But she has no time to wonder about that because there's a big talent show fundraiser. Both Wanda and Agnes are in the planning committee, and there's a meeting in the afternoon. Wanda meets Geraldine, who's also new in town, and they quickly bond over their shared fears of inadequacy. The neighborhood watch is also having a meeting, but unlike the fundraising housewives, these guys don't take it very seriously. The group's true purpose is just to gossip about non-members. In an effort to be in sync with his peers, Vision tries to follow their lead but grossly misunderstands the concept of gossip. So he drops something about his coworker Norm, who's sitting right next to him. Luckily, they all take it as a joke and burst into laughter. The next crisis comes with the snacks. Vision can't let them notice that he never eats food, so he accepts a piece of chewing gum, which is quite harmless until his neighbor Herb gives him a pat on the back. He accidentally swallows the gum, and it soon starts doing all kinds of damage inside. Helping to clean up after the meeting, Wanda has another inexplicable incident. A voice comes from the radio calling her name repeatedly and asking, "Who's doing this to you?" Her host is very disturbed for a moment, but soon resumes her normal self. And so the talent show is on. Geraldine is helping Wanda backstage before her magic act with Vision. Not knowing about the malfunction, they're both appalled at his drunk-like behavior. Their performance begins and Vision gets worse and worse. The collective gasp is heard when he begins to levitate for real. Wanda uses her real powers to conceal his also very real magic, in a desperate attempt to make the audience believe it's all fake. Crazy, right? After the show, Wanda identifies the problem and extracts the gum, finally fixing her hubby. The evening brings another surprise to the lovebirds. Somehow, Wanda is many weeks pregnant, and they're so happy they just ignore the bizarre speed. Their touching moment is interrupted by a loud noise, and they go outside to check. It's some kind of beekeeper coming out of a manhole. Wanda looks at that and says, "No." That has an incredible effect. Reality actually rewinds a few seconds. The noise never happens, and instead of the ominous intrusion, a burst of color comes over everything around them. So when the day begins in the mid-70s, it should come as no surprise. And it does. Nobody seems to notice. What they do notice is a 4-month pregnancy. Vision tells Dr. Nielsen, "It's been actually about 12 hours, but Wanda quickly changes that unpleasant subject. Blaming their crazy talk on anxiety, Dr. Nielsen agrees to keep the news between them. He's off to the Bermudas with his wife, but has no concerns about Wanda, as the baby isn't due for another 5 months or so. I'm sure you just guessed what's about to happen. That baby has fast-forwarded to the last trimester by the time Vision is back inside. He gets so alarmed that he actually tries to talk to her about these outlandish incidents. There might be something wrong with their perfect life in Westview. Not happy to hear that, Wanda simply rewinds him, and his new lines are much more cheerful. Her water breaks just after that, and Vision runs to get the doctor before he leaves for the Bermudas. Juggling contractions and the supernatural effects of her emotional state, Wanda also has to hide these things from Geraldine, who decided to stop by unannounced. But when she can no longer keep the farce going, Geraldine rises to the occasion and helps her deliver not one, but 2 healthy babies, Tommy and Billy. Letting her guard down for a moment, Wanda looks tenderly at the babies and says she is a twin herself. Something happens to Geraldine when she hears that. She suddenly sounds like a totally different person and begins to ask about Pietro, mentioning that he was killed by Ultron in Sokovia. Furious at this unwelcome real-world interference, Wanda kicks her out. Out of her home, her town, and most importantly, out of her show. Geraldine lands right outside something that looks like a giant dome covering the whole town. That's when we see there's a whole-ass military base surrounding Westview. What are they doing here? Let's go back to a few days ago to find out. Geraldine's real name is Monica Rambeau, and she works for SWORD, Sentient Weapon Observation and Response Division. Director Hayward sends Monica to help the FBI with a missing person case. But Agent Jimmy Woo explains this is actually a missing town. He'd lost contact with an informant who had just moved to Westview, so he called the man's family and friends. They had never heard of him before, as if he'd been erased from their memory. The cops right in front of them refuse to acknowledge the town even exists, despite being parked right in front of the sign. Jimmy is worried about the 4,000 residents, but he's too much of a chicken to get any closer. Hence the SWORD drone he wants to borrow. We know that thing will end up at Wanda's as a broken toy, but from their point of view, it simply disappears. Braver than her colleague, Monica comes closer and sees a transparent wall blocking her way. When she tries to touch it, she's immediately sucked in. The response base is set up less than 24 hours later, and Dr. Darcy Lewis is called in. Measuring radiation levels, she picks up superimposed wavelengths and requires an old TV to check it out. Soon, they're all watching the same show as we are. The main characters are easily recognized as Wanda Maximoff and Vision, 2 well-known Avengers. But nobody can explain how Vision's alive again, why their life is now a TV show, and what is that dome cutting off the city from the rest of the world. Then, Darcy has a lucky heart attack to see Agent Rambeau cast as Geraldine. Not sure why she's playing along, they conclude she might be in danger. Director Hayward sends an agent through the underground sewer pipe. That's our beekeeper. Just like that voice on the radio is Jimmy trying to communicate. When Monica is kicked out, she says this is all Wanda. On the next day, another awkward moment disrupts the sitcom, which is now in the 80s. Vision disagrees with Wanda about Agnes babysitting the twins. Looking confused and a bit scared, Agnes flat out asks if they should take it from the top. It's the first time someone acknowledges the rewinds, and Vision is deeply troubled by what she said. It's becoming more and more evident to him that Wanda is literally running the show. And every time he gets close to learning more, something comes up, and he's forced to put the investigation on hold. This time, for example, their babies vanish from the cradles, only show up 5 years older. Just like that. At the SWORD base, the whole thing has been named the Westview Anomaly, but Darcy calls it the hex because of its shape. Monica's account raised the level of the threat since it's now clear that the original residents are hostages. Nothing could make Hayward happier. He's that kind of guy who loves a chance to shoot stuff down, and this is Wanda's turn. In a team briefing about her, he presents a very biased account of her past. As Jimmy keeps correcting him and even Monica protests, he decides to show them a video. They saw Wanda at the Sword headquarters 9 days ago. Hayward says she broke in and stole Vision's body to resurrect him later. The twins find a little dog, but Wanda says they can't take proper care of a pet until they're 10 or so. With a mischievous look, Tommy and Billy once again fast-forward their aging process, stopping at 10 years old. Teaching Norm about emails, Vision stumbles upon a suburban report that mentions the Westview anomaly. Norm's casual reaction to the alarming message makes him suspect the truth. He wakes him up for a moment and finds out that all these people are buried inside the characters and totally terrified. Monica sends in a drone from the 80s this time, on a hunch that what fits in the right decade might remain functional. It does work, but Hayward had armed it without her knowledge. Any chance to negotiate is gone when he gives the order to fire. In her regular clothes, Wanda steps out of the dome to dump their now damaged drone, diverting all the guns to Hayward with her mind. She says this is a last warning. That night, she has a much harder confrontation. Vision says he wants to remember his life before Westview, and he needs to know if she understands what she's doing. She says she doesn't know how it started and still finds it hard to believe she controls everything. Their fight is interrupted by the doorbell, and she swears she didn't do that. And maybe it's true, as she's certainly shocked to see Pietro at her doorstep. Next day's Halloween, and Vision says he's on duty for the neighborhood watch, but it's just a way to investigate further without Wanda's constant surveillance. The twins are excited to go trick-or-treating with their dead uncle, but Wanda is suspicious. She keeps testing him to determine if he really is her brother. That's when Tommy finds out his own ability, super speed. After the drone fiasco, Monica stands up against Hayward. Jimmy and Darcy take her side, and the three of them get booted. So they start their own operation. Darcy hacks into Sword and finds out Hayward is tracking Vision for some reason. She also sees Monica's blood tests and warns her about a second expedition. It seems her experience inside the Hex has caused changes in the molecular level. Monica ignores all that and contacts some engineers about a Wanda-proof vehicle. She leaves the camp to go meet them, taking Jimmy with her. That's when Vision tries to leave the Hex and begin to disintegrate. Darcy runs to help him but gets detained. Inside the Hex, Billy's power is triggered by his dad's predicament. He tells Wanda that Vision is in trouble. She puts the whole town on pause with one movement and then makes the Hex expand. The dome grows past Vision, but it doesn't stop there. The entire base is incorporated as a circus, and most of the agents are now mimes or clowns. Then it finally stops, sparing Jimmy and Monica. Hayward also escapes. He was the first one to run away in terror. Vision wakes up in the same place and recognizes Darcy from last night, but now she's an escape artist and doesn't remember him. Wanda is conflicted and confused, which makes the Hex wonky around her. Agnes pops in and takes the twins, letting her have some me time. At the same time, Vision is doing that Norm trick on Darcy. She wakes up and they borrow a van from the circus. Monica's supercar is an epic fail, but she decides to go back anyway. Re-entry changes her as predicted, but not in a debilitating way. She kind of acquires powers of her own. Darcy tells Vision everything, including that inconvenient part about him being dead. Now he knows what Wanda's been through and understands the situation a bit better. Confessing to have watched the show since the beginning, Darcy says she is sure that their love is real, which is a sweet way to tell him that he is not. Monica finds Wanda, and she seems a little more open to reason. But then Agnes comes between them, telling Monica to leave her friend alone. She takes Wanda for a cup of tea and says the twins are playing in the basement. That's actually a trick to get her down there. It turns out that Agnes is not a Westview resident and has never been under Wanda's control. Her name is Agatha Harkness, and she's a witch who betrayed her own coven 300 years ago. A huge fan of dark magic, her talent is to absorb the power of others. And that's why she's here now. Wanda tries that red glow of hers, but it won't work in a space pre-marked by someone else's runes. There's a bit of witch-splaining here, as Wanda is kind of a newbie. But the truth is not even Agatha fully understands the Westview anomaly. She thought she's seen it all, but this kind of magic on autopilot is something new. In order to learn more, Agatha forces Wanda to relive her most traumatic moments: the death of her parents, being Hydra's guinea pig for Hydra, losing Pietro. American TV shows have been her only source of joy or relief for decades. Then we saw her at the Sword headquarters about 2 weeks ago. Her visit is much different from that heavily edited video. She wants to give Vision a funeral, but Hayward shows her it's too late for that. Still very grief-stricken, she does break a thing or two. But in the end, she just walks out empty-handed. Vision had bought a lot in Westview for them to build a house, so she drove there. Standing in the middle of her home-to-be, she breaks down completely. Her pain triggers a magic storm that transforms what is already there and creates what isn't. Once it's over, Vision is no longer chopped into pieces of junk, but standing right there, looking at her the way he used to. Wanda doesn't need to understand. Right now, all she needs is to forget. When the memories are over, she can hear the twins screaming. Agatha has them both. She says her theory about Westview was right. This can only be the work of the legendary Scarlet Witch. And it's very annoying that she's using that power to create stupid TV shows. Meanwhile, Hayward has managed to reactivate Vision's body, which he had all along. White Vision is coming to life, and his directive is to destroy his own twin. He flies into Westview and attacks Wanda first, but her husband stops him just in time. Monica is now trapped at Agatha's house. She was captured by fake Pietro, who's just another civilian under mind control. Monica realizes that the artifact around his neck is Agatha's way in. Removing it, she meets the real person and is free to go. The two Visions fight each other until our Vision convinces his opponent that he's just a replica. White Vision is programmed to destroy Vision. Realizing that it could mean suicide, he decides to fly away from this mess. Agatha is also tricked into believing she won. Wanda seems to take the bait, blasting her with the magic she keeps absorbing and growing weaker at each round. But that's not aimed at Agatha at all. Wanda is casting her own runes over the Westview Dome, which makes any other witch unable to use their magic. Now Wanda has gone full Scarlet Witch, and she punishes Agatha by trapping her inside Agnes forever. Recognizing the extent of her mistakes, Wanda takes down the hex and makes it all go back to the way it was. That also means that Vision is dead again, and her children no longer exist. She leaves the town the same way she got there, all alone. And this is the end. This was a recap of the 2021 series WandaVision by Marvel Studios, starring Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany. So, what do you think will happen now? And do you think Wanda should be forgiven for what she's done? Let us know in the comments below with #Cinemarca. Until next time.